This matter is involving Sebastian Rogers' mother and father, Katie Proudfoot, and Seth Rogers. This is Sebastian Rogers' mother's sworn statement regarding Seth Rogers, Sebastian's father. Since returning from deployment in December, I have witnessed a multitude of events from Seth. I have seen him hit Sebastian in the head, neck, and back. I have witnessed him, when taking his anger out on Sebastian, grab him with both hands, lift his entire body up, and slam him down, then proceed to beat him. He has on many cases whipped him with a belt, not paying attention to where he was hitting because he was so angry. My neighbors informed me that during my duty days, they have seen Sebastian on multiple occasions coming outside the house, crying and looking for his dad because he had been gone for long periods of time and didn't know where he was. They had told my son to go inside and lock the door when this occurred. Seth will, on a regular basis, just walk into the living room and get naked, not caring that Sebastian is in the area and sees this. On several occasions when Sebastian expressed stress or anxiety about our separation or his daddy's anger, he would respond by telling Sebastian that this is all because mommy doesn't want to love daddy anymore. By the second week of school, the teachers had already requested that the principal be present any time that Seth were due to him, making them uncomfortable. When we went to the school to meet his teacher, before the school year had started, we had just finished explaining about Sebastian's diagnosis and about the fluid on his brain, and he did something to irritate his father, who then responded by hitting him in the head in front of his teacher. And when I addressed him about it and told him he cannot do that and cannot keep doing that because it is wrong, he told me it wasn't that hard and it's fine, and people need to stop telling him how to raise his son. I found out when I took the restraining order to the school that they had contacted CPS, Child Protective Services, 1 week prior. The social worker and myself have seen behaviors from my son, such as waking up screaming and kicking in the middle of the night with terrors, fear of making a mistake for fear that daddy will beat him. He had an accident at school where he wet his pants and was terrified for daddy to find out. He is displaying aggressive behaviors that mirror what his father says and does. I've reached out to his doctor and am requesting assistance with therapy for PTSD in light of the child abuse and to help my son recover from this. I have spoken to his doctor and a referral is in place for therapy to start as soon as possible to help him with this transition and to cope and recover from the trauma that he has been through. Seth has been monitoring all of my phone calls and not allowing me to speak with anyone, including my family, without listening. And he has been monitoring every text and call that I make to catechinize me and keep me from telling people exactly what has been going on, hovering over every call that I make. On June 5th, 2016, Seth was very angry and belligerent. He stormed out of the house and got into that Chevy Cruze and peeled tires out of the parking lot. Approximately 30 minutes, give or take later, he came back, pulling in crooked and fast, jumped out of the car and ran inside the house, looking for his gun, stating that he was going to kill that blank. My neighbor was over at the time and took recording of him during that time. I responded that if he took his gun and tried to kill someone, he would wind up in jail, and that he could not do that. My neighbor went outside with him and spoke to him, where he stated that someone followed him and threw a soda at the car. Soda was all over the outside and inside of the car, and pulled him out of the car through the driver's side window and punched him in the face. He said he did nothing to provoke this and refused to make a police report after being repeatedly advised to call the police and make an incident report. He did not have markings, but was exaggerating his limp for approximately 5 minutes before walking normally again. I have also received multiple complaints at various times throughout the last 4 to 6 months from neighbors that he makes them feel uncomfortable because he is standing out front, confronting everyone when they come home or watching them. My neighbor in unit blank is in the process of adopting, and they have persons coming to their house on a regular basis. I caught Seth approximately 1 month ago confronting the gentleman because he parked in a spot and telling him he doesn't care who the F he is, and if he does it again, he'll take action to have his car towed or beat his ass. This was to a social worker there to check their home, and he knew it. Attached are pictures of our son with marks left by the respondent, which are not going to be shown here. I certify under penalty or perjury under the laws of the state of California that the foregoing is true and correct, and this is signed Sebastian's mother, Katie Rogers. From the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, receipt and notice of confiscation of weapons. The weapons seized were relinquished pursuant to Penal Code 29625D and will be retained by the Sheriff's Department until the protective order is no longer in effect. You may contact the Property Evidence Unit, Dundas, at 858-467-4406 with any questions. In the matter of Rogers, I, Seth Rogers, declare that I am the respondent in the above captioned matter and have personal knowledge of each fact set forth in this declaration. If called as a witness, I could and would competently testify within the bounds hereto. Petitioner Katie L. Rogers, herein referred to as Katie, and I were married on June 21st, 2008, and still reside together. We have been married for 8 years and 3 months. We have one child together, Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, hereinafter referred to as Sebastian. Born December 7, 2008, on or about August 29, 2016, Katie obtained a temporary restraining order against me and had me removed from our marital residence. She listed Sebastian as a protected party and obtained a child custody order through the TRO, forbidding me to see him. There is a permanent domestic violence restraining order, hearing set for September 16, 2016, before this court. Since being served with the DVTRO, I have not violated the DVTRO and have had no impermissible contact with either petitioner or our son. On August 29, 2016, and September 8, 2016, I turned in the firearms I was in legal possession of to the San Diego County Sheriff's Office. Attached hereto as Exhibit A are true and correct copies of the receipts and notices of confiscation. I have abided by the terms of the DVTRO, even though Katie's actions rendered me homeless. Request. Katie's request for a restraining order is based upon the following. I was highly aggressive in my mannerisms, and I cursed and yelled at her, not a basis for a restraining order under the facts. I was very angry, yelling at our son, and our son said, "Daddy hit me," not a basis for a restraining order under the facts, as I never hit him. I have yelled at her and our son and slammed the door, breaking it, not a basis for a restraining order under the facts. Generic allegations of temper issues, false and not a basis for a restraining order, even if true. Generic allegation of drug usage, false and in and of itself not a basis for a restraining order, even if true. As a result of these baseless allegations, I respectfully request the court deny Katie's request for a permanent domestic violence restraining order in full. There is no basis for her claims, and she fails to prove conduct under the Domestic Violence Prevention Act that would justify a restraining order. Incident of August 28, 2016. In her request for DVRO, Katie claims that on August 28, 2016, I was being highly aggressive in my mannerisms and verbally watching her in her sleep. And I yelled at her because she is not willing to beat her son. This is not true, and even if it was, it would not be the basis for a DVRO. What actually happened on this day is that I was having a difficult time with our son. He refused to do anything I asked of him. I asked him to clean his room and he replied no, and that he didn't have to listen to me or do anything I asked him to do. And he told me I should apologize for asking him to clean his room. I attempted to appropriately discipline him by sternly telling him that under no circumstances should he ever speak to any adult, let alone his mother or father, the way he spoke to me. After this, Sebastian ran downstairs to Katie, jumped in her lap, and started saying he hated me, and that he wished I would leave and never come back. After Sebastian seemed to calm down a bit, Katie got up from the chair she was in and walked outside, and Sebastian approached me and told me he loved me and wanted to live with me after all. After this incident, I was very upset, but I was never violent in any way. Our neighbor was in the house and she said something about being uncomfortable. I told our neighbor I was going to just get some coffee and go outside to be alone. When I did, our neighbor followed me outside and asked me what was wrong. I told her how I was feeling and asked her to just let me calm myself down and compose myself. At no point did I act violently toward her or anyone else in the house, and I never yelled at Katie because she wouldn't beat on our son. There was never any violence, nor was there any threat of violence. Incident of August 22, 2016. In her request for DVRO, Katie claims that on August 22, 2016, I was being belligerent and yelling at her and our son. This is not true, and even if it was, it would not be the basis for a DVRO. What actually happened on this day was that Katie and I were arguing about how we were going to proceed with our divorce. Our divorce has been filed, and we were still residing in the same house, which created a tense situation. Although we argued, I never once acted violently, and never once did I encourage her to beat on our son, as she alleges in her pleadings. During our argument, I left the residence and slammed the door, but her claim that I broke the door is false. The door was already broken before I slammed it. Again, there was never any violence, nor was there any threat of violence. Incident of August 11, 2016. In her request for DVRO, Katie claims that on August 11, 2016, I was angry at our son, and that our son told her that I hit him. The truth is that I never put a hand on our son. Our son suffers from a rare condition called 6q27 chromosomal deletion syndrome. Among the symptoms he suffers from are incidents of acting out, where he hits and bites himself out of frustration. He has been known to throw himself to the ground during these incidents. This is a very common thing for him, and others have witnessed him doing this. I have filed herewith declarations from some of these witnesses. On August 11, 2016, Sebastian suffered from an episode in which he hurt himself out of frustration. I had told him that day if he cleaned his room, he could go swimming. I asked him if his room was clean, and he replied that it wasn't. I told him he couldn't go swimming until it was clean. Sebastian reacted by flying into a rage, screaming and hitting himself, biting himself, and trying to throw himself on the floor. I reached out to catch him before his head hit the door frame. At no time did I ever hit him or display any violent actions to him at all. Here it skipped straight to 20, so you will see that there is one page missing. I do not have that page. Katie's real response for filing her DVRO request. I believe Katie only filed this request for DVRO in order to gain a tactical advantage in our divorce, and specifically to get me kicked out of our marital residence. As stated above, our living situation was quite stressful, as we were going through the divorce process while living together. However, I believe Katie knew she could not remove me from the home without staging a domestic violence incident. This was totally unnecessary, as I know that we cannot live together any longer and I'm willing to move out without a court order to do so. Also, I know that she did not want me to have equal custody of Sebastian, so the DVRO is also an attempt to ensure that I do not see our son. Conclusion. Katie and Sebastian have no reason to fear me. I have never harmed, harassed, or threatened them. Katie's request for a DVRO is simply a tactic she is using to try to get me kicked out of the marital residence and cease my contact with our son. I respectfully request the court deny her request in full. I also request the court order Katie to pay my reasonable attorney fees to defend against her false accusation.
Now, I know that there's been a lot of paperwork, documents that were leaked out here in these internet streets, describing you as just painting you in not a great light, for lack of a better term. And it all has to do with how you were handling your relationship with Sebastian, okay? For lack of a better term. Can we talk about that a little bit? Because I know that there's been a lot of people talking about that, some people side-eyeing, etc., saying, oh, Sebastian was in a bad place no matter where he turned, so on and so forth. And I just wanted to air some of that information and just kind of lay some of that to bed. What's up with that paperwork? Is any of it actually true?
If any of that was true, California would not have given me joint legal and joint physical custody while I was homeless. If any of that was true, California would not have given me joint legal and joint physical custody while I was homeless.
When Katie and Chris met, they were both married. Katie was married to Seth and had one child, Sebastian. Chris was married to Nina and had one daughter. They both divorced their spouses, and they both made very similar claims during the process. Katie filed for divorce and custody in 2016, which we heard some of those details in this video. Chris and Nina started their divorce and custody battle in October of 2017. That battle was horrendous also, to say the least. There was a parenting plan entered in Chris and Nina's case in April of 2018. I'm betting that Mr. Chris wrote that along with any and all allegations made against Nina. When these documents came out about Katie's request for a PPO against Seth, I had said I believed Chris was responsible for a lot of what was said in the documents filed with the courts. Now we have proof he was from his own words. Let's listen.
Like I said, I'm going to break my little grace thing for a little bit. So no, I'm not going to bash the shit out of him, but I am going to put this out there for him to hear. For Seth R. Rogers and your little billboard and your little crew and all your fucking at-night little minions and whatever the fuck y'all want to call it, TikTok Tony or Little Dick Tony or whatever the fuck y'all want to call the guy. I don't give a shit.
Oh my God.
But I'm going to put this out there, Seth. And what you forgot was your parenting plan, still a legal document. And in that parenting plan, it says you cannot talk negatively about the other parent and vice versa. But you seem to do it anyways. So keep it up. You're just building evidence for a court hearing. Take the fucking billboards down and stop the bullshit.
Oh,
I agree with that.
We got.
And I know your parenting plan because I wrote the motherfucker myself. So yeah, the internet can break the fuck today because I'm over it.
Nah, Chris, nothing broke except for the blood vessels in your brain as you freaked out and showed the world who Christopher Proudfoot really is. Poor Sebastian was forced to live with that. We already heard you avoid the actual answer when you were asked if you yelled at your mom after court, because you sure didn't just say no, did you? I don't care how you feel about Brittany J. She hasn't said anything to deserve any part of what Chris said during this live stream. I can only imagine the wrath that Sebastian felt living with Chris. Anyway, that's all I have for right now, but more is coming soon. So make sure that you're subscribed, ring-a-ding my bell, smooch the thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching. May you have the kind of day that karma feels you've earned, especially you, Mr. Chris. And until next time, I love you bunches.